Organizing Committee. Welcome to the first session of the conference in social matters. Antonio had to step out for a few minutes. He was going to introduce me, but I'm sure he will come back and say a few words, perhaps at the end of my talk or at the end of my colleague's talk. So hopefully we'll have him appear again. So we'll get started. My name is Tim Joseph. I am the Associate Dean of the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Alberta. And I thought I'd start by just saying why the University of Alberta is participating in this conference. Over the last 2 years, the Canadian government, and particularly the University of Alberta, have pledged to the Peruvian government, and particularly to the Ministry of Education and to the Ministry of Energy and Mines, to provide advice and counsel, assistance, and help wherever we can to help Peruvian universities increase their opportunities in education and research to achieve accreditation, not just at ABET, but also for CEAB, the Canadian Engineering Accreditation Board. The reason we want to do this is because it's a little selfish. The University of Alberta would like to collaborate with as many universities in Peru as possible. And for us to be able to do that without affecting our accreditation, we need to help you achieve accreditation. And so we're looking for our professors to engage with your professors in research, in some of the new styles of education that we have adopted, and we would like to see if there's an interest to share those new directions. And so overall, we can create more opportunities for our students, both from Alberta and Canada, but also in Peru. And we're not restricting to working with any one university. We are opening our doors on a value basis to work with as many of the universities as we possibly can. And that's been our commitment to the Ministry of Energy and Mines in particular. And this will come out tomorrow in a discussion on Thursday when we talk about this new Center of Excellence, which we are trying to help the ministry to establish with the universities here in Peru, specifically for mining and mineral processing. So we're looking to help as much as we can. Our benefit is to make friends. We're looking to make friends. And through that relationship, to increase our research potential and your research potential. So let's talk about this new teaching methodology and assessment. So I'm going to talk about 3 things. And I'm hoping these presentations will be available to everybody through the materials from the conference afterwards. I think that's the case. That's what happens. So hopefully you will have this. So I'm going to talk about 3 things. One is the Canadian Engineering Accreditation Board graduate attributes. They are very similar to ABET, but they have a focus on some of the softer skills, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to talk about scenario-based learning. And scenario-based learning is something that Alberta is one of the first universities in Canada to adopt. We do this in our final year of students, just before they graduate, in their final year. We tie this into project work. We bring industry into the classroom. And one of our biggest assets is the third point, is engaging industry. And so industry works with us. They help fund our programs. They help take our students for work experience up to 20 months in a 4 to 5 year program. That's a lot of work experience. They pay our students very well. Some of our companies are the same companies that are here in Peru as Canadian juniors. I've talked to those companies. They want to work with you. So I'm seeing the Center of Excellence as a way that we can bridge that relationship and help you establish a co-op program, very much like ours. At the end of the day, the same industry group also advises us on whether our curriculum and our content is what they need for their graduates coming into the business. Are we teaching the right things? Are we missing elements around tailings or water management? Are we teaching that enough? And so industry feeds back to us that maybe we need to increase some of the content in our program, and we don't have to take all the advice, but we take most of it. And so we try and make those changes so the graduates come out of the program better equipped to meet what industry needs for their own futures and careers. So let's talk about attributes and accreditation. This is where we're coming from. Our last accreditation, and I should say that Alberta is the only university in Canada that has had a full 100% accreditation specifically for its engineering programs at the undergraduate level, but also for its master's and PhD programs. But in mining engineering, we've had full accreditation for the last 30 years. No other university in Canada has had that. And that is brought about because of the industry involvement in our programs. Industry has helped us make sure our content meets things like safety requirements. We're teaching the safety component. We're not ignoring the pieces that industry requires to have. But in terms of the amount of material we have to generate for an accreditation, as I know many of you have been doing with ABET, and I've been doing traditionally with CEAB, it takes us about 16,000 man-hours to prepare the material, and it costs us to do that accreditation as a university $1 million. That is ridiculous. That is a waste of a resource. We've got to find a better way to actually perform this. So the traditional accreditation has always been based on academic units. How much science content, how much engineering content, how much elective content from the social sciences, how much English or how much language content do we have in there? Presentation skills, life skills. The new graduate attribute system, which is also part of ABET, is on a learning objectives approach, making sure students have skills focusing on the outcomes, not on what the curriculum actually can be rated as in terms of engineering or science content. It's student performance-based. So when we assess using a graduate attribute system, we're not just looking at the content and the achievements of the students from the point of view of the professor, we're also looking for the students to peer review. They assess each other. They work together in teams, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And instead of being a 6-year cycle, we do this continuously, and so when we come to an accreditation point every 6 years, we're not spending $1 million. We've been doing it all the time, and it becomes part of the process of delivering a course. The professor collects data. Just as part of running the course, no one has to try and chase every 6 years and wonder, what did we do for the last 6 years? That's where the cost is. Going back and doing the research to try and build an accreditation document is very expensive. So why don't we just do it continuously? It's very hard to see, but essentially, we have some traditional knowledge, problem-solving skills, engineering tools, software, the things we've always taught within our curricula. But then within the design content, rather than give the student a design project, a set of data, and get them to work through it, so for example, building a mine, closing it out, we're now letting industry come into the classroom and participate. We make the students teams of engineers. The professor becomes the mine manager. Industry become the board of directors, the CEO. And when the students are thinking about what they're working through, we say to them, every 2 weeks, you have to present to the board, and if you cannot get the message across in 5 minutes, the CEO is walking out, and you may have just lost your job. So make sure you're factual, you have all the information, and don't forget the external piece that affects community, that affects government and economics. Make sure it's inclusive in how you're describing your solution to a technical problem. We also have elements that lead into much more impacts on the softer side, impacts on society, thinking about communities, artisanal mining. If you have a project in an artisanal mining area, how do you deal with the artisanal miners? How do you include them rather than exclude them? How do you get buy-in from a community to a larger mining project? How do you engage? So the engagement becomes part of that process. And then as we move towards the end of these new attributes, we talk about an appreciation for lifelong learning. And for when we saw this, I looked and said, what on earth does Engineers Canada want from me? How do I ask a student or find out whether a student has an appreciation for lifelong learning? But then you find yourself becoming imaginative. And you say, you give a student a problem, do they know where to look for information? Do they know who to phone and talk to in industry? Do they know if there is peer-reviewed information they can draw on? Can they find the right sources to know there are experts out there that they can learn from? Where are the mentors? How do they find a mentorship base? And so we actually engage professional engineers to come into the classroom, and all of our professors are professional engineers, but we actually get professional engineers to come in and they act as additional mentors to the students. So these 12 graduate attributes have different perspectives. We look at not just the grades, we look for other skill sets. Some of them are very obvious technical skills that we've always done. Nothing different than any of us as professors or educators have seen before in the classroom. These are things that we've always used. Engineering tools, investigation, problem analysis, design projects, we've always had that. But we're now adding in softer skills. We're increasing the communication. We've always had students presenting, but what about if students work in teams? If the teams assess the leader, or if the leader assesses the team's performance, are they engaged? Are they participating? Because in the real world, all of our graduates are going to work in teams. Very few of them will work in isolation. Do they understand? Well, let's just go back a bit. Do they understand about economics and project management? My colleague Richard here is a professor in business. He does this all the time with the MBA students. Do we talk about the principles of leadership and management in our classrooms in mining? We attempt it, but the best way to teach it is for them to experience it with someone assessing them who is knowledgeable in industry, maybe an industry vice president. Bring them into the classroom. And those are some of the tools and techniques that we've been doing. There are some that are specifically related to social license and professionalism. We ask the students, do they understand what the impact of technology is on society? Sometimes communities are far better within their own traditions and cultures, and we need to respect that, being left with a simplistic form of life. Maybe they don't need to have high technology. Maybe that changes the culture too much. And so we ask the students to consider that in their process of analysis. Ethics and equity. Our profession, as professors, as professional engineers, we have an ethical responsibility to society, to our students, to the resources that we manage. Do the students really understand that? And so those are the questions and the skill sets we try and bring out in their learning. So we have a curriculum, and this is literally a whole string of skill sets within a curriculum that we might be looking for. And they may fit into one of the 13 categories, and these are courses that have specific intent that will draw some of those skills out. So some of the skills are specifically targeted, such as knowledge base. Traditionally, we've always done this. Some of them focus on the softer skills. And so, for example, the traits we might be looking for, and this is at the professional side, we might be looking for an awareness of an impact on society, how an impact assessment works, and how sustainable design can be created. If we think about the philosophy that most of us use, and we've used for years for project design, we say to the student, don't start at the beginning, start at the end. What should closure look like? What is the end product? And remember, you're not mining ore, you're managing waste. How will you actually end up at the end of the day? One of the questions I'll be talking about on Thursday in the CSR session is, why is our resource reserve definition process only focused on the ore? Why aren't we defining the waste and making that part of our reserve resource definition? Because sometimes waste has a benefit. Maybe it could be construction material for the future as a product produced by the community. Do we need to reclaim it if it's going to be another mining activity to create a future for the community? We can defer that reclamation process because there is a purpose to the waste. And at the end of the day, the 30 to 40% additional waste we create in our mines, maybe it's not longer a problem. And so the solution may be staring us in the face to solve the issue of what happens to a community after a mine. And those are the thoughts we're starting to inject into our students. So the capabilities, as always, very obvious. We build from our fundamental knowledge. We get into our specialist knowledge the later years of the programs. The students discover how to investigate. They then build on their analysis and tools, and eventually, at the end of their curriculum, they get into the design projects. Nothing unusual. But what we're looking at is building into these softer skills, teamwork, project management, ethics, and our analysis skills. They all need to have an equal standing, and that's what the new graduate attribute process is looking for in accreditation. It's not just looking for the hard skills, it's looking more for the softer skills than ever before. Some of those skills, the students can investigate themselves. They do this through associations, through joining together as clubs. At our university, some of them build race cars, solar cars. Nothing to do with mining, but the actual team environment, yes, they're learning something that will benefit them in their careers. So we encourage students to go out and have another interest beside their academic life, something that they can work together with people. It could be a sports leadership activity. It creates leadership and teamwork. We look for skills specific around ethical responsibility, critical thinking, collaboration. These are the life skills that the attributes are looking towards, that we would say this is how we want to actually move this forward. And these are some examples of how we've measured this. We look at this in terms of the percentage of students in a class in any given year that have achieved those skills. And so essentially, excellent is the purple, developing is the red, and the pale blue, which is hard to see, is unsatisfactory. So there are many skills, and the design stuff is always very good. Students are always very enthusiastic about design. They always perform very well. Individual and teamwork. Our students amazed me. They just leapt at this. It was different. It wasn't sitting in a classroom and actually just listening to the professor. They were discussing. It was an engaged process. Communication skills, quite varied, depending on speaking. The two language skills I see worst in my students, they don't speak well, they need help, but before you can speak well, they need to learn to listen. Students don't like to listen, particularly to a professor, but you bring an industry person into the classroom, oh, this is someone who's important. They start listening. And so there's a reason for industry engagement. It helps us get to that particular point. Impact of technology skills. Again, quite varied. Economics. And these are all outcomes that we then report to CEAB as part of our process for our new accreditation. Lifelong learning. And these are some of the tools we use. This is a corporate or community social responsibility task we set the students. All of these things are team-based. In our programs, we ask the students to engage together. We will bring in someone to advise them. The advisor will go around the teams from industry. So if we were talking about CSR, I would bring someone in from the social sciences or someone in who actually does this in the field. We actually have a peer assessment process. The students are asked to always assess the same 4 criteria, but always the task is different. So for example, if a leader is assessing a team member, they will ask themselves, does the team member understand and perform the assigned role? So for example, your team could be, one person could be the engineer, one person could be the operations manager, one person could be the plant manager, one person could be dealing with the external world. And the team leader says, okay, report to me. We got a problem. Everyone will have a different perspective. Let's solve this solution, find the solution to this problem, looking at every one of these perspectives. And so they will assess on that basis. The leader will assess, do they meet expected responsibilities and tasks? Do they actively contribute? And so what we're doing is we're assessing these life skills. But the last one, which I think is the most important, does an individual in a team respect the opinions of others? So if someone says, I think this, if another student in the group says, oh, you're stupid, that's wrong, that's not showing respect. You need to ask why it is you have that opinion. Respecting the opinions of others is very much part of the new teaching environment that I think we're expected to look at. So I thought I'd run through very quickly scenario-based learning. This is the way I run it. This is a team of students. It is an octagonal table. I usually have no more than 4 students in a classroom, 4 students in a group, multiple teams, maybe 10 teams in a classroom. Each group has a large screen on the wall. They all work to the same computer. We provide them with a hub that their laptops can connect into the same software so they can contribute to the screen. So it's almost like a multitasking process. But the team is actively working together. People are working from different perspectives, but it's all accumulating on the screen. And so they learn visually as well as orally how this is all playing out and coming together. We bring in industry. We use real-time cases. As a former industry person, I started in industry. I didn't start as a professor. And so from industry, and I continue to consult, I will bring in live case studies. In fact, about a year ago, I was working on a problem. A mine phoned me at 2 a.m. in the morning. They said the shovel stopped. I said, what does maintenance say? They said they don't know what's going on. I said, is there power? They said, yes. Are the ropes still on the shovel? Yes. Did the operator fall asleep? No. And what had happened, the bucket had engaged a large piece of material that was poorly blasted, and it had stalled the machine. And the high-low voltage collector in the core of the shovel could not re-engage. And so I said, send me photographs. And I worked from 2 until 5 in the morning, and the shovel started 3 hours later. Because I'm a mine mechanical guy. I then went to school and I taught this at 10 a.m. that morning. I walked in, I outlined the scenario, just as it had been outlined to me, and I said to the teams, figure it out. I want this done in 50 minutes. I gave them 1/3 of the time it took me. And I gave some extra clues. Work through it, ask questions, and I will ask questions as if I'm the mine. It was a real-time live problem that I'd only solved hours before. That's what I'm trying to bring into the classroom, is to get industry people who say, we just had a unique scenario, to phone me, outline the scenario, do that with my colleagues, my other professors. Let's work this through with the students. Let's give the students a sense, this is real, this just happened. It's not an old case study. So, the outcomes of this kind of engagement, where students are working in teams, they're interacting in a number of different ways, qualitative, quantitative. They are giving visible skills to potential employers. if the industry is in the classroom, they're also a future employer. I want the students to wow industry to stand the best possible chance of getting their first major job. Industry will remember people that excel when they see them in the classroom. They will always give them the benefit of doubt if they come into an interview scenario. This is another mechanical example. This is lube control. Pressures for a brake system dropped way too low. The truck was out of control. The problem was the filter was clogged. How do you solve the problem? So instead of actually having a bunch of filters in the classroom, I brought in a new technology, magnetic filtration, and said to the students, how could you use this in your hydraulic system to make sure the brakes work effectively so you don't have a hazard? And they work through this scenario. I give them shovel power draw. I said to them, tell me how much energy is being used per ton and what would happen if you get a better blast quality. What would happen if you pitch the bucket down to give you better rake angle? I gave them a scenario of a drag line. The drag line takes a complete strip, casts the material, moves over and does the next one. I said, what happens if I tell you you can only move 1/3 of your waste? You have to leave everything else intact. Come up with a hybrid between surface and underground so you still mine the ore. And the solution, which is actually in a mine close to where I live, is you actually move part of the material, but you actually run a short wall mine underneath the material you don't move, and then once it collapses, you walk the dragline onto it and you take the next one. You only ever move 1/3 of the material. It now becomes a much more efficient system. So the classroom setup, fairly small, groups of students. Groups of 5 and 6 students do not work. 5 and 6 students, 4 people will do the work, the other 2 will stay idle. The best number is 3 or 4. That works really well. Each group has the common screen. They work at a round table so they can see each other and talk to each other. Everyone has a role, and you rotate the leadership through the group throughout the year. The outcomes is they get a much more broader perspective that there is no single solution. There are an indefinite number of solutions to a problem. There is no right solution. There is no wrong solution. There are just many different kinds of solution. And the industry engagement part, this is Jim Carter. He's the former president of Syncrude Canada. Jim was the president of the largest synthetic oil operation in the world, producing billions of barrels of oil. Jim has been the chair of my mining industry board of directors for the last 22 years. We asked him if he wanted to retire. He said, no, this is my baby. This is good. This is industry really engaged where it needs to be. And so he's come up with that group, which is basically 20 vice presidents or presidents. We do not have someone lower than a vice president on that board. So when they go back to their operations, they say, we are going to do this with the university, and it is an order. It's not a junior person going back and asking for permission. It's a top-down process that works. So in this process, these are the roles they focus on. They market our program for us. They place our students in up to 20 months of co-op experience during their academic time in blocks of 4, 8, or 12 months into industry. Students learn a huge amount in industry. They come back into the classroom better prepared. It's a much better, well-rounded experience for them. They help attract quality professors. The reason I'm at the university is because Jim said, you've got to stop being an industry person. I need you to go back and lead the mining group. I was hired by the university at this man's request because he said, we need to have some industry people actually there. I think it's worked out okay. They improve the facilities. They give us funding. The one thing I learned, and the one thing I'd advise anyone, is when you engage industry, never ask for money, show value, invite them to participate. Industry sees great pride and value in being asked to participate. They want to be asked. They'll take it very seriously. They'll take it with great respect. And at the end of the process, or during the process, suddenly they'll come to you and they give you a check. I have never asked for money from industry. Neither has my dean, my previous dean, for 20 years. In that 20 years, we've been given $500 million by industry. We never asked for it. That $500 million has built 5 brand new engineering buildings on campus in the last 20 years. Not one penny came from the university. We did leverage from the provincial government, but we paid them back. So our engineering campus is completely independent of any financial overhang from the university or from government. We are unique in Canada. That, to me, is the goal you aim for, but the trick is you show value, they will give you value. These are their goals, and I'll leave these for you to read at your own leisure when this is presented. These are the details within the strategic plan that industry has as a board, and they review this every year and say, are we meeting these goals? And if not, take it out, let's rewrite it. They're very active to make sure it's not just a plan, it's operational and it's delivered. So world-class placement, promoting the program, and ensuring that the board itself continues to be effective. They self-evaluate. They ask me to evaluate. Jim said to me, do you think I'm doing well? Oh, Jim, how can I say you're not? And he says, no, but you need to be critical. So I did criticize him on something. And he went, And I got this grunting noise. And I thought, uh-oh, I've upset him. And the next thing he says, no, we do need to change. But they're willing to listen and take criticism as we do on some of our content. So my conclusions to you are basically the same as my outline. All these things are connected. We cannot achieve accreditation unless we actually introduce new things that match what industry really needs in the classroom, and we get industry to engage with us. And industry will find value in doing that, and they will support the research programs. They will support the actual endowments that allow us to hire more professors without having to worry which budget is going to come out of. My salary is not paid by the university. My salary is paid by this board. I have not taught for 2 years because now I'm in the dean's office. I don't have time, unfortunately. It's very sad. But I said to them, would you like me to reallocate that money to a new professor? They said, no, don't worry. We'll get you a new professor. We need you to stay here. I think Jim thinks he controls me. I worked for him at one point. I think I still work for him. But overall, this experience for me has been a total change on how I deliver a program. So thank you for listening. And I'm not sure if we have time for questions. Do we have some time for questions? We do? So I'll be very happy to answer questions. And I'm actually going to ask Carlos to translate for me live, rather than me listen. And then I'll see if I can answer your questions. So please ask away. Thank you very much.
Bueno, nos quedan todavía 10 minutos para preguntas. Si la pregunta, no sé si nos podrían ayudar en la traducción para algunas preguntas, si es que estas se hacen en español. Creo que podemos recibir un par de preguntas de alguno de los presentes. Tenemos una pregunta. Si podemos acercar el micrófono para poder tener la traducción adecuada.
Mike? Yeah, we good? Technical problems. Always. That's good. So if it's okay, Carlos will translate. Oh, you see, yeah, just want to use the mic? Okay. Okay.
Hola, 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 hola. Sí.
You can do it in Spanish.
Micrófono.
Yes, and then everyone can hear and I will translate. Yes,
I think. Do you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I'll do it in English, then the rest translate to English, I think.
Okay.
Your approach to the industry is very impressive. To get
Thank you.
this amount of money for the development of your program and your university is, I think, unique. I don't think there is such an example in other countries or in other universities in this amount.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. How do you do really exactly? How do you approach to the industry? Do you have a committee coming relatively regularly to the university? Do you send some reports? Tell us, please, a bit more about it so that we have a
Very
bit of your
happy.
success here in Peru, which is not so easy.
Oh. So I am very happy to share. The simplest thing for me to say is the Industry Advisory Board, the committee that advises me from industry, they are all industry members. They see a commitment because there is always someone directly in the mining program and the processing program that sit from the professors. They always come and meet with them. We try and get as many professors to sit there with them and talk with them when they come to meet. But we always have either the dean or myself as the associate dean. We're always there because they see there's a commitment from the university administration to the program as well as the professors looking for help. We never ask for money, never. What we try and do is we say, what can we do for you? We always ask industry, what can we do to improve that would provide a better graduate for you? What issues are you having in your operations that you don't have a solution for? Maybe we can find some professors to work on this in research. But again, we don't ask for money. They will discuss and they'll say, for example, we've got real issues about our water quality. We cannot release it into the river. We would like to process it, but we have chemical issues around how we clean that water because we can't put it back into the process. It needs to be cleaner before we put it back in. Because our faculty, and it's the Faculty of Engineering as a whole, it comprises all the disciplines: chemical, civil, mechanical, metallurgical, electrical, engineering physics, nanotechnology, mining, petroleum. All those are departments within our faculty. But if we're faced with a problem, they look to me and they'll say, El Decano, how can you help us? And I'll say, it's very simple. I will have my chemical professors who are experts in this area come and talk to you. So we're not restricting it just to mining. We make sure we have access to our other colleagues. And of course, industry will then say, well, if you can help us with this, we would really like to be able to support a graduate student. Then you've got them hooked. As soon as they say, we would like to support you to do this, you say, okay, we need to support a student for a period of time. If you want to fast track a solution, we could put a couple of students on this, and we look for a short-term solution, and then we'll look for a longer-term solution. We may need to have some equipment. And we will ask them, do you have this kind of equipment in your industry laboratories that we could use? And quite often they'll say, no, we don't have that, but if you need it, don't worry, we'll make sure it's there. So we don't always get cash. Suddenly equipment arrives. For example, most industry has huge wear problems in processing and in ground engaging tools. We have in our metallurgical group one of the finest welding research shops anywhere in the world. There is more equipment in there than I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen so many robotic welders, so many different welding devices. We didn't pay for any of it. It just arrived by mail. We even have prototype machines that have been sent from welding manufacturers in Japan. They suddenly arrive because the company says, we're planning to use this, but we need our university to evaluate it if it's the right one for us to purchase. But when we've done the evaluation, no one picks it up. We just got a new teaching tool. So it's amazing, just those words, what can I do for you? They suddenly want to talk. Industry wants help, but they haven't been invited. You invite them into the conversation, they will start expressing a need. But let them tell you they will help you. One of the biggest turnoffs for industry is if you say to them, we can do this, but this is what it will cost. Then they go into almost a procurement mode, as if they're going into a bid structure. Well, maybe we should look at another university. Maybe we should get a response from someone else to see if it's lower cost. Let them set the price. Because I guarantee, from an industry perspective, industry always thinks up here in terms of dollars, not down here. You know, if you ask for $5,000 from an industry person, it's really hard to get. You ask for 10 million, sometimes it's easier. I've never asked for 10 million. I'd like to do that, but I've never done that. But honestly, they will suddenly give you the resources. The other piece of the puzzle is having access to their industry experts and bring them into the classroom. In this day and age, when we are so short and we're struggling to find new professors, specifically for the mining side of things and mineral processing, you cannot find a good, young mining professor who has experience. It is really, really difficult to find those people. But you know something? Why don't you invite industry to participate and make them an adjunct professor? Adjunct professors, we don't pay our adjunct professors. They do it because they want to give something back. But they will commit to a couple of weeks a year. I have an adjunct professor from the UK who comes and spends 2 weeks with me in the fall, 2 weeks with me in spring, to come and teach the students in their final year. He does it because he loves to do it. He works for Komatsu Mining Germany. We've never been asked to pay for anything. We take him to dinner. But they put him up in the finest hotel in the city. He stays with us for 2 weeks. I have no idea what the bill is to them. But that resource is incredible because it also allows me to have an industry person to mentor my junior professors. It gives me a different voice besides the dean saying, oh, I really would like you to do this. Because the junior professor, oh, the dean's nagging me again. He's asking me to do more and more. Right, he's beating on me. But bring in a new voice, everybody wants to listen. Does that answer some of it? One thing I want to pledge to everyone. For your universities, if you would like to work with me to develop industry advisory groups with your industry in Canada, I'd be very proud to help. Is that okay? We could do that? Okay, I think we should do that. Maybe we should do this through SOM. Yeah, maybe we should do this through SOM. Yes, sir. I think we have a... Time is over.
No vamos a poder tener esta pregunta
One more?
porque si no las cosas nos van a poder
Thank
ir.
you, Anton.
No se van a poder ir. Yo quiero agradecerle al profesor Tim Joseph de la Universidad de Alberta por el inicio magnífico de esta presentación. Les ruego que tenemos... Bueno, por supuesto.
No, quiero hacer una... Bueno, ¿aló? ¿Me escuchan? Muy buenos días con todos. Me gustaría dar primeramente la gracia al doctor. Me parece satisfactorio su ponencia. Le comento un poco. Yo soy, recién este año estoy empezando a dictar unos cursos en una universidad, la Universidad Jorge Basay Groman de Tacna. Y bueno, principalmente es muy satisfactorio para mí hacer digamos, esta dicción de los cursos, ¿no? Lo que le quería preguntar básicamente es, ¿ustedes están viendo nuestra realidad nacional? Porque viendo desde el punto de vista, es muy, se puede decir, muy ostentoso lo que ustedes han logrado en un determinado tiempo. Pero no solamente es ver, digamos, al estudiante, a la universidad, a los profesores, sino es ver cómo es la connotación nacional que tenemos nosotros en este momento. No es ser muy, se puede decir, no es ser muy negativo, pero tenemos que empezar de algo. Y es el momento. Usted más o menos, doctor, sabe muy bien que nuestra realidad es muy diferente a la de vuestro país, pero quizás tenemos recursos energéticos y recursos naturales tan o más valiosos que su país, y nosotros tenemos que enfocarnos desde ese punto de vista, ¿no? Yo le comento, yo estuve, digamos, tanto en la parte de la industria petrolera, en la industria de la minería y también en la industria de la geotecnia trabajando. Ahora, lógicamente, estoy un poco enseñando en la industria de la docencia. Pero yo lo que quisiera saber es principalmente cómo podemos empezar, porque, ¿no? O sea, está muy bien el comentario, vernos cómo es nuestra realidad, ¿no? Quizás de repente el profesor no solo debe ser un líder, sino también ser un entrenador, un coach, ¿no? Y enseñar nuevamente a nuestros estudiantes ser buenos profesionales, pero no solamente con los estudios, digamos, de los conocimientos básicos, sino con la ética, ¿no? Que son los valores que últimamente
Vamos un poco a la
estamos teniendo,
pregunta.
¿no?
Dejemos al profesor la
Gracias.
respuesta. La respuesta.
Sir, I can answer very quickly. So the very quick answer is, yes, we can do this. We can start today. And the way we're going to do this is the University of Alberta, Carlos and I, signed an agreement for the university with the Ministry of Energy and Mines. We are going to start a center of excellence, starting with 5 leading research universities, but it does not exclude anyone. Every university, every vocational college will be invited to participate. This institute will not be a building, it'll be a collection of people, and it will include industry. We're going to create a forum where industry is going to declare to us what their research needs are, where their problems are. I am going to help advise the ministry and the universities, and I'm not taking anything out of this other than I know it's the right thing to do. I'm going to advise on how to build the research groups, not within just one university, but universities working together. I am pledging, and I've pledged this to the Minister of Energy and Mines, I will pledge my experts, my professors, my industry to come here and work with every university on building their research portfolios so that industry in Peru will support it. That's my pledge, that's my promise. I'm also pledging to assist every university to go beyond ABET and go for Canadian Engineering Accreditation. It is a 30% increase in quality and difficulty to get there, but through possibilities of joint degree programs, and we've talked about that, through joint degree programs where our professors may be able to come here and teach some of the courses or help teach some of the courses, maybe increase some of the junior professors' knowledge to become a higher level and a future leader within the faculties here. If I can do that, then we can create our next generation of graduates who will be eligible to be professional engineers rated by Canada and respected anywhere in the world. You start getting that value seen by industry, they will support you. So my pledge is to continue to work with the Ministry of Energy and Mines as quickly as possible, and we are going to talk about this as a forum on Thursday, I believe. Maybe it's Wednesday evening, I can't remember which one it is. It's on Wednesday. where we're going to start talking about the governance process for this. I'm asking the ministry to chair that group, because it should not be me, it should not be any one of us. I need to stand off to the side and provide counsel. But I will also provide contacts, I will also provide links, and I have already talked to the 5 leading researchers in processing, mining, and sustainability in my university. They want to come here and engage with you. They want to share their graduate students with you so that our graduate students get to understand some of the research issues here, and maybe my graduate students, as well as yours, will be our next generation of professors. That's our way forward, but we're starting today. Guillermo Chino and I talked yesterday. We're of one mind. We need to commit to improving education for mining and mineral processing, for the environment, for communities, and sustainability. So the situation in Peru, that is part of the process. It's going to happen soon. So thank you very much.